Who was the last Mughal emperor of India? The Mughal Empire, established in the 16th century, declined due to internal conflicts and European influence. Its last emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, 1837 to 1858, was a figurehead for the 1857 rebellion. His exile by the British to Rangoon after the revolt's failure permanently ended Mughal rule in India. The Mughal Empire was an extensive and influential empire that had tremendous effects on the social, cultural, and political landscape of Indian subcontinent over a period exceeding 300 years. Established during the 16th century, the Mughal dynasty expanded exponentially at different historical intervals, with periods that were characterized by grand architecture, reforming the administrative system, as well as excellence in art and literature. As time progressed, multiple internal conflicts, both competing factions, poor heirs, and rising European influence, contributed to the erosion of Mughal power. By the 1800s, the former might and reputation of the empire were reduced to nothing, and only served as a shadow of what it first was, before it became insufficient to continue holding such power and eventually ceased to exist as a viable empire, thus leading us into an important turning point in the history of India. Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last emperor of India from the Mughal Empire and served as emperor from 1837 to 1858. At the time that Bahadur Shah Zafar became emperor, there was little or no political or military influence remaining for the Mughal Empire. The British East India Company was effectively controlling India at this point, so Bahadur Shah Zafar became a figurehead of the Indian Rebellion of 1857, where Indian revolutionaries appointed him as their leader. However, when the revolt was unsuccessful, he was captured by the British and eventually exiled to Rangoon. This exile was regarded as the end of the Mughal Empire in India. The Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar was a very large figure of the revolt of 1857. However, he had very little part in the conflict. The Indian soldiers declared him leader of the revolt upon capturing Delhi in order to give the revolt credibility and to unite the different factions of the revolt. He was an elderly man and did not want to involve himself in the insurrection, but under pressure agreed to be the figurehead of the insurrection. In this position, he was used in proclamations and printed on coins that were issued by the insurgents. After the insurrection failed and the British had arrested him, they used his involvement in the insurrection as a rationale to bring an end to Mughal rule in India and subsequently exiled him out of the country. Because the British believed that the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was responsible for the revolt of 1857, they exiled him. When the Indian rebels captured Delhi, they named him the symbolic head of the insurrection, despite the fact that he had not really taken part in or had much power over the strategy behind the revolt. However, since the British government viewed Zafar as actively supporting the revolt and giving it legitimacy, they arrested him and tried him before a British military tribunal. By the early 19th century, the Mughal Empire had declined significantly, losing much of its authority and influence across the Indian subcontinent. Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal emperor, was largely a symbolic leader, with real power held by the British East India Company. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, he became a figurehead for the resistance, although his role was mostly ceremonial. The rebellion marked a pivotal moment in India's history, but it also underscored the diminished status of the Mughal dynasty under British rule. After the unsuccessful uprising of 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal emperor, was exiled by the British to Rangoon. This act symbolized the final collapse of the Mughal dynasty, which had once dominated much of the Indian subcontinent. The exile of Zafar marked not only the end of an era, but also the beginning of direct British governance over India. This transition profoundly reshaped the region's political and cultural landscape, closing a significant chapter in its history.